This is the SuperCoach NRL official podcast. Team List Tuesday with Tom Sangster and Rob Sutherland.
Hello, SuperCoaches, and welcome to the Round 16 Live React Teams podcast. The second big buy round of the year is here, and Tom Sangster has abandoned his post mid-season, leaving me in charge. I'm joined by Brandon Savage. How's your team going so far?
It's going all right. I had a bit of a dip in the rankings last week. I went from 13th overall to 25th overall. Captaining Garrick really hurt. I was having a good weekend until that, but team's still going good leading into the bye rounds.
Yeah, my team is going horribly. I too fell for the Ruben Garrick captaincy disaster, which, I mean, my team was actually on track for a decent score for once before that happened. Teams are about to drop. So we're just going to chat a little bit about some of the big talking points before that happens. Big things we're looking out for today. Is David Fifita going to be named? Ryan Pappenhausen possibly set for a return, which would mean Suafai Logo's possibly out of the side or maybe moves to the wing this week. And Lockie Galvin potentially returns for the Tigers this week.
Oh, I hope Lockie Galvin is named for sure. I think a lot of us are scraping for numbers, and Fifita for a lot of coaches as well. I don't have Fifita this week. He's in my plans for this week, but it'd be kind of nice if he wasn't named. We'll see. But yeah, I think a lot of people are banking on them too.
Oh, I definitely need Fifita this week. Have you got 13 on the park already?
Yeah, I've got 14 at the moment. Yeah,
I've got 15, but it's like there's a few people that I'm sort of I need them to play to actually, you know, have some good options this week. As I said before, it's the second big buy round of this year, so Broncos, Cowboys, Dragons, Eels, Knights, and Panthers and Sharks all on the bye this week. Are you making any trades this week?
Yeah, I'm going Scott Drinkwater to James Tedesco at the moment, and if Fifita gets named, I'll work out what I'm going to do there. Because if he doesn't get named, there's no point in getting him in this week, as the Titans have the bye next week. But I think James Tedesco is one of the high upside guys, that one of the most traded in players this week. So I think he'll be really good to have over the bye rounds. And Scott Drinkwater has not had a bye yet, so he's got 3 byes coming up, tough draw, and I'm holding on to Latrell Mitchell. Yeah,
I'm definitely bringing in Teddy this week. I'm sort of tossing up who to trade out because I have Latrell and Scott Drinkwater as well.
Yep.
Latrell, I was kind of hoping he didn't get called back into Origin camp, but I think after we all saw him play last week, we all knew he was going to be in there. Teams we're still waiting on. Reminder for SuperCoaches that SuperCoach Plus is only $24.95 for the season, or you can pay $59 up front for 12 months, or $1 for the first month. That comes with SuperCoach Plus and access to all SuperCoach articles for the season. We've still got about 2 minutes to go until teams drop.
We don't. Oh, we got a team for the Dolphins. For the Dolphins and the Melbourne Storm.
Sweet. So I think the big talking points out of this week, a lot of people looking at Jermaine Asako and either Max Plath among the most purchased.
Yep.
I'm assuming they're both named.
They are both named, yep.
What do we see any other changes in there? Try Fuller coming in at fullback, obviously with Hamiso on Origin duties. You haven't held Try Fuller, have you?
I haven't, no. Scott Drinkwater and Latrell Mitchell.
Of course, yeah.
The Dolphins look near full strength.
Oh, Tavita Pangai Jr.
I just saw that at the same time.
TPJ named to make his club debut. It's the first time he would have played in like almost 18 months, I think, right?
Yeah, something. Oh, he played last year, towards the end of the year, but as we know, he hates coaches and halfbacks, so it's good to see he's back and kind of gone back on that word.
Yeah, any interest in him at all?
There's a lot of interest, not from myself, but from the community. 340,000 with the dual front row, second row, and I think just that dual flexibility is very, very tempting.
Yeah, I think I haven't looked at what his price actually is, but if he's cheap,
340.
Okay, well, he does cover the round 19 bye, so coming off the bench this week, if he can work his way up into a starting position, potentially over the next few weeks, he could come into consideration for round 19.
My issue with him, though, 4-forward bench, Josh Kerr, Mark Nichols, Ray Stone. So the minutes, I definitely wouldn't be pulling the trigger this. If he was 240, I'd probably nearly do it, to be honest.
Yeah, if he was coming in. Any interest in Jermaine Osaka or Max Plath this week? They're among the most purchased players so far.
Max Plath, yes. I think he's just a big middle forward who accumulates points. He's got a few tries and attacking stats in him and a lot of offloads as well. I think he's at a very good price. For someone like myself who has Fini Fuiaki from the Cowboys, I think he's a nice little upgrade option.
Yeah.
Or someone like Morgan Smithies if you already have the numbers. But yeah, he's someone who can get you through the next 2 bye rounds and hopefully have for depth later on in the season.
Yeah, I brought him in for Finifua
nice.
earlier on in the season, so I've been really happy with that. In other news for the Dolphins, nothing super relevant. Jesse Bromwich is back from a rib injury, and like we said before, Tavita Pangai Jr. making his club debut off the bench. For Storm, we haven't even gotten to that yet. Ryan Pappenhausen is back, but in some good news for SuperCoaches, Suafai-Longa is not out of the side. He actually shifts to the wing, obviously with Xavier Coates out on Origin duty. Do you have Fai-Longa?
I don't, but I'd be a very happy owner right now if I did.
Absolutely. I too didn't really want to go there, but I think we can see Will Warbrick is back from injury as well. So I guess next week, when if Xavier Coates does play for them, or do they have the bye next week? They don't.
They don't.
If he comes back, potentially Suafai-Longa is out of the side from next week. The other things to look for the teams, Bronson Garlick is in at hooker for Harry Grant. And Trent Loiero is named at lock, but he's actually in Origin camp at the moment. But given he's not 18th man, he'll be back in.
Yep. Joe Chan, named.
Joe Chan. For the few SuperCoaches that still have him, I abandoned ship a while ago. Do you still have him?
Yeah, I still got him, and I was kind of waiting for the Nuff play. For him, I was going to get in a second row, front row Nuff. Because AFB has the bye in the last round, so I was hoping to use that to sell to absolutely anyone. But he's lost so much value that it's not worth doing that anymore. So hopefully he can come on the park and score some points.
Yeah, one last price rise and then hopefully get rid of him. Moving on to the Titans, big thing we're looking for here is David Fifita named, and he is named. So that means obviously his withdrawal last week was devastating, especially since it had already come once the round had already started. So we can see he's back. Klesi Haas moves back to lock, I'm assuming.
No, he's not there at all.
He's out of the squad. That's a bit surprising. Aaron Clark holds down the lock spot. Obviously, Moeki Fotuaika in Origin duty, so Keenan Palacia starts a prop, and Joe Stimson and Isaac Fasua-Malawi on the bench. For the Warriors, another big boost for SuperCoaches. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck is back from a hamstring injury. He was 18th man last week, and he looked very ready to get back. I saw footage of him after the game doing laps, so he's looking good. And I never had him. Did you own him at any point?
I did. He was someone I held on to for probably a bit longer than I should have. Yep. He's very Kale Iro like, where he's just pumps out a 50 to 60 every week, but just no more, no less. No interest from me, but I see why people might be interested. Yeah,
now that he's back. In other changes for the Warriors, Dalamatani-Zalesniak is suspended, so Ed Cossey comes in. Kurt Capewell and Mitch Barnett obviously in Origin camp, so that means Dylan Walker starts and Tohu Harris starts again, unless they decide to bench him last minute again like last week. Any interest in any of these Warriors players? Are you a fan of Adam Vanilla-Blake?
Yeah, I like Adam Vanilla-Blake. I've got him in my side, and I think if you don't have him, I think this is the week to get him. He's a guy to hold for the rest of the season, and if it's between him and Haas, I think he's got more upside, so I like him. One person I do like is Wade Egan at the moment, 422,000. At the moment, I got Reece Robson in my side, so could be a little downgrade option potentially to bank 200k from. So that's something I'm looking at, but just with all the concussions, probably can't do it.
I don't mind that. I was sort of forced into bringing in Mitch Barnett last week.
Oh, no.
Which has backfired because, I sort of knew he was going to be in the Origin rotation, but for game 1 he wasn't 18th man, and now he is. So he's definitely not going to be available for me. Moving on to the Roosters, big thing we're looking for is Dominic Young named, and he is named on the wing. So hopefully he's over that hamstring injury and is not a late withdrawal. Other news for the Roosters, obviously, Lindsay Collins, Angus Crichton, Spencer Leniu and Connor Watson out on Origin duty, which means Brandon Smith has earned a recall, dropped last week due to disciplinary reasons. And you said before you're looking at bringing in James Tedesco this week.
Yeah, I think I still will now. Yeah. He's named. First time we've had Teddy for a bye round since the Tigers days. So I think I'm very excited to own him for this week. Yeah,
I'm a big fan. I think the Bulldogs is a bit of a tough matchup, but he's got good bye coverage over the next few weeks. And I think 5-round average of 104 or something. So James Tedesco is just ticking all the boxes for me. At the Bulldogs,
Terrell May starting as well.
Oh, Terrell May starting. Well, that's good for the SuperCoaches that have stuck with him. I jumped ship ages ago. I was just the inconsistency. I wish I'd held him for the bye periods now, just because he is starting. But the inconsistency I just couldn't put up with.
He's going to be frustrating late in the season when he's so tempting to play because you know what he can do, but then he's not going to get the minutes.
Yeah. At the Bulldogs, Jacob Kiraz shifts to centre with Stephen Crichton in Origin camp, and Gerald Skelton comes into the wing for his first game of the season. Josh Curran, importantly for SuperCoaches, is back in the back row with Jacob Preston still sidelined. That was why I had to bring in Mitch Barnett last week, because I brought in Preston the week before. And the new faces on the bench, Jake Turpin and Pawasa Famasuli. Not really much doing at the Bulldogs. I think Josh Curran being back is massive for everyone that's held him so far.
Yeah, for sure. Playing on the edge as well. Probably late change once again to the middle. Yeah. But I think regardless where he plays, he'll score well, and he's a much needed number this week.
Yes. Moving on to the Rabbitohs and Manly clash. I'm expecting a ton of changes for Manly. We did a story early on today that about half of their salary cap is unavailable this week, which is massive. But at the Souths, obviously, Latrell called into Origin camp. Jai Gray makes his return from injury at fullback. Cam Murray also called into Origin camp, which means we get a debut for Liam LeBlanc. What a name! That's hectic. Good to see him getting his NRL debut. Jai Arrow also out with a rib injury, and as expected, my Sea Eagles absolutely decimated by injury and Origin duty. DCE, Jake Trbojevic and Homale Olakawatu unavailable. Carl Lawton at halfback. Oh my god. And Nathan Brown and Corey Waddell starting in the back row. As I said, lots of injuries at Manly as well. Taniela Paseka, importantly for SuperCoaches, Ruben Garrick suffered a Category 1 head knock last week, so he's out with concussion. Ethan Bullimore starts at prop, and Aaron Shook comes in at centre. I believe that's his Manly debut as well. A few weeks ago I would have been pretty happy and pretty sure Manly could win this matchup, but Souths are on fire at the moment, and Manly have been decimated. I'm very worried about Carl Lawton at halfback.
Yeah, I don't know. They haven't even got anyone on the extended. Jamie Humphries maybe comes in. He has played a bit of halves in the past, so maybe he comes in, but still it's not a solid backup option. So I'm a very excited Cody Walker owner this week.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think Alex Johnston, 400k, playing on that left edge. He's someone who you always pick up this time of year just about, and he goes on a big run. But my issue with him is Cody Walker's not playing on the left predominantly anymore. So
exactly.
I'm personally staying away, but I see that there's so much interest there.
Yeah, and we mentioned before, obviously, Latrell Mitchell unavailable. You're tossing up whether to sell him or Scott Drinkwater, as am I. You're still thinking you'll stick with Latrell?
Yeah, I think so. I think Latrell's the type of guy that can really hurt you late in the season. And the Bunnies, they're on a hot streak. If they win this week, even more reason to keep Latrell because they can actually make the 8 from here. They're only 2 wins out of it.
Yeah, one thing to talk about Manly as well, Lehigh Hopewade is a popular purchase this week. Any interest at all? I mean, obviously, last week was the week to get on if you're going to get on him, but there's still some money to be made there. For
a fullback, he's at a very good price still, 333k with a negative 38 break even. He looks really good, but with a bye next week, I want my fullback to be making bulk cash very quickly and move him on as soon as I can. So I think I'll pass, but I do see the appeal if you've got a spot there available.
Yeah, I think obviously not playing next week hurts, but then after that, I think he's available for around 19 and 20, which is big. And job security pretty good at the moment with Tom Trebojevic still sidelined. So I can see the appeal for a quick cash grab, but the bye next week really hurts for sure. Moving on to the last game of the round, because it is a shortened round this week. We have the Tigers versus the Raiders. And Lachlan Galvin has been named to make his return from injury, which is massive for SuperCoaches. I've held, and I'm really happy that he's back. Other changes, well, his return means Api Coruscant goes back to hooker, so the Api Coruscant owners will be really happy with that. And Adam Dewey, has he been named?
He's on the extended still?
On the extended. I suppose Lachlan Galvin's return probably means they don't necessarily need to rush him back in, but he's potentially one to look at it in the coming weeks. But for now, obviously, he's not in the starting side, so he's not really into consideration. And for the Raiders, just one change with Zach Wolford coming into the starting side with Tom Starling, who had concussion last week. Corey Horsburgh, we wrote about today, he's recovered from his injury, but he's still not named, which is a bit alarming. The only real thing to talk about Supercoach-wise for the Raiders is Jordan Rapana as, I think, the 10th most purchased player this week. Is there any interest from you for Jordan Rapana at all?
Yeah, 550k, kicking goals, available at centre wing, and playing fullback. We always know the fullbacks playing in centre wing are valuable. But yeah, Jordan Rapana, I really like him. This matchup this week is quite juicy. The Canberra Raiders are coming off a loss and the Tigers are coming off a win. So I always like to target teams on the bounce back, going against teams who have won. So like they've got a more relaxing week coming up since they've come off a win. So I like Jordan Rapana this week.
Yeah, I was looking at it before, and a lot of the top buys this week, there's a lot of fullbacks, there's a lot of forwards. There's not a lot of good centre wings playing this week. So I'm a fan of Jordan Rapana. I believe he's one of the best centre wing purchases this week if you need a centre wing to get 13 on the park. We'll talk about some of the teams on the bye soon, because even though they're not playing this week, there's still a lot of talking points. But we might just answer a quick questions if you've got any up. I've got one here. Rodney, what do you think of Galvin for Hopewade via KO Weeks for 3 weeks until Latrell is back? Some ditching KO Weeks, moving Lockie Galvin for Hopewade.
I mean, if you're a head-to-head player, I don't mind it because you're making money. Galvin is probably peaked for now, but I think he can rise up in price once again. But I wouldn't do it if I was an overall player.
Yeah, I think head-to-head, holding on to Latrell through this period is definitely the way to go. So if that's how you cover your fullback to keep Latrell, I back that. So Joe here saying, wow, Tom Sangster got a lot more handsome and better at SuperCoach. So a little compliment to Wilson. Thank you very much. Have you got any questions there?
Jeff Nolan here. Good point. I didn't even think of it. When does Cody Walker get duels?
That is a good point. I believe next position update is round 18, and he would definitely be one of those players. Yeah. Obviously, he's been starting at halfback for over a month now. So
I didn't even think of it. So, yeah, good point.
I believe he would be one of those players coming into consideration as well. Mitch here saying, Wilson looking fresh. Thank you, Mitch. Tyson here asking, is Garrick a sell?
I don't think so. Manly have a good run on the run home. I think if you are good for numbers this week, it's a good chance to kind of hold put and potentially have Garrick as a more pottish option later in the season. But I understand why people would be looking at selling, because you've got to get your team right.
Yeah, I tend to think of him as a hold this week if you can cover him. Obviously, given it's a head knock, he should be good to go next week. But they've got the bye. So actually, missing 2 games, that's a bit of a pain. I'd still lean a hold, but if you have to sell him to get the team on the park, I can get around selling him. Let's talk about some of the teams on the bye this week. The Broncos, they're on the bye this week, but their next bye isn't until round 24. So is there any Broncos that you've got your eye on? Payne
Haas, but that's probably it. I don't mind Piakura. I think he's still down in price, but at this time of year, I don't want to be getting in guys like Piakura. I want to be getting in guys like Haas. So he's someone I'm looking at. Yeah,
Haas, I'm definitely looking at bringing him in sort of after the Origin period. Just during that period where there's still some teams on bye, he'll be a good cover, and obviously as a keeper to the end of the year. Yeah, it's helped that Liam Henry has absolutely surged in price, so I think it makes Haas much more achievable than it would have been if he didn't emerge. Yeah. Looking at the Cowboys, we talked about it before. Their bye schedule is really not good. They're on bye this week. They missed round 19 as well, and then their next bye isn't until 25. So they're one of the few teams that have not had any buys so far this year. Scott Drinkwater, we talked about him a bit before. You still think he's a sell? It just depends. You've got to look at his run, and from memory, it's not perfect. It's a little bit mixed. He's the type of guy that is a high upside fullback, and a lot of the high upside fullbacks are injured or going through Origin at the moment, but I think by the end of the year, he probably won't be in your top 2 fullbacks, whereas I think Latrell is. So I think someone like Scott Drinkwater, I prefer to sell for long-term. Short-term, it's kind of going to be a bit awkward, but long-term, I think it'll be the right move to make. Yeah. At the Dragons, Jack DeBellin amongst the most sold this week. People sticking with Zach Lomax, though. Do you own him? No, I don't. He's someone I've been wanting to get in all year, but then with Origin, the timing just wasn't right, so I've avoided. But if you did have him, you'd be holding him for the end of the season. Yeah, right? I think so now. If you sold him before round 13, I would have got it, but selling him now is just... We're only 3 weeks away from the back end of the season, so I'd wait. I'd hold on. At Parramatta, Blaise Talangi was one of the most sold players this week, which I can sort of understand, but they are on the bye, so he's not going to... he has peaked in price, but he's not going to be losing money this week. But Parramatta also cover the round 19 bye, so for me, he's actually a hold if you can afford. What are you planning on doing with Talangi? I sold him last week for Brian Kelly, which is so random, but he's in my team at the moment. I think... Now that this round is up, it feels wrong selling him just for 1 week when he can cover the rest of the rounds up until 19. But I don't mind selling. He's at a good price where you can really capitalise and get someone who can benefit your team long term. But I don't mind selling or holding. Yeah. Moving on to Knights, David Armstrong is worth talking about. He's currently the most sold player. Not named, well, was named on the extended bench last week, but he's seemingly lost that fullback position. He's a sell, right? Yeah, Fletcher Sharp has looked really good since he's come in as well, so I think he's got that position. He was always first in line. Yep. David Armstrong took his opportunity with both hands, but I think the pecking order is at where it's meant to be at the moment, and yeah, it looks like David Armstrong probably won't get a crack for a while now. Yeah. At the Panthers, Dylan Edwards, obviously called back into Origin camp, is, I think, a sell candidate, given obviously in Origin camp, and even if he wasn't, the Panthers are on bye this week and round 19. Liam Henry also potentially a sell candidate, given that bye schedule. What are you doing with Henry? His break-even is still, I think it's 40 at the moment, so I'm happy to hold just in case I need that cover for next week. But he'll be massively on the chopping block the week after, just because I don't know
how much he's going to lose in price, because them tries he scored, 80-point performances. I don't know if he can do that again. I think he's got it in him, but the minutes are only going to get less and less as Origin kind of finishes.
Yeah, and moving on to the Sharks, there's a few talking points here. Kale Iro is one of the most sold players. He's actually the most owned player in the game, but people are starting to jump off.
Yep.
What are you planning on doing with him? Do you think he's a hold?
I like the fact that you can sell him for a good amount of money, but their draw home is ridiculous. So they've got the Bulldogs, who are actually been really good. They've got the Titans, the Tigers in the next 2 weeks, who defensively have leaked a lot of SuperCoach points. The Tigers in round 19, so you'll need that number. Then they've got the Cowboys, Souths, the Gold Coast again, Newcastle, St George, the Warriors and Manly. So they don't play a top 4 side for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards keeping him at the moment, just given their run home. Plus, I'm starting to run out of trades. So I think moving him on is a bit of a luxury.
Yep.
The other thing to talk about at the Sharks, obviously, Nico Hines, not picked for Origin 2. Barring injury, he shouldn't be called back in for Origin 3. Is he someone you're thinking of bringing back in towards the end of the season?
Yeah, he lost 110k last week, and he'd probably lose a bit more money next week. I think round 18 is going to be the biggest. He's going to be the most traded in by far. Yeah,
I think given that he covers round 19 by as well, and like you said, there's some good matchups coming home, I think he's going to be a popular purchase. I think that's all the talking points about the buy, so let's just answer a few more questions to round out the show. Have you got any there on YouTube?
Yeah, Sebastian Keynes, I think we already answered this, but thoughts on Rapana with the goal-kicking duties?
Yeah, I'm a fan of Rapana, just given obviously the lack of sort of quality options at centre wing to bring in this week. I think he's probably one of the best options, so I'm very big on that. This is one for you, Ross. Here asking thoughts on Brian Kelly as a player.
No, don't get him. He's only owned by Jesus Christ. He's only owned by 1,000 people, which is crazy. Less than 1% of teams. So I'm very happy to have him. Please don't get him.
Yeah. And let's just make this the last question here. Scott asking, any interest in Damien Cook for Reece Robson?
No. Damien Cook looks really good, but he costs more to go from Robson to Cook.
Yeah.
And the uncertainty with the minutes and just the style of play. He could be back as a SuperCoach option, though. We don't know. Maybe he's the perfect player for the run home. I don't know. But I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think that's about all we've got. Good luck getting 13 players on the park this week, and I'll see you for the preview show on Thursday. See you later, SuperCoaches.